You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land, coming to you actually on site at Dickinson Manufacturing with Keith Dickinson here. We're typically at the Sun Prairie Media Center, underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie, but it turns out this place is cooler, so we'll just run with that. Today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Keith Dickinson, the owner of Dickinson Manufacturing. So Keith, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
This is cool. I'm excited because the last time I was here, you had machines on this side, but I don't think you had anything here.
Right.
So this.
So that was prior to 2014.
Yeah, it's probably been a while.
We started in 2005.
Okay.
And this space had the wall going all the way, and it's 30,000 square feet. 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
30,000. I wish.
Yeah.
No, a 30 by 100.
Okay.
And then in 2014 we added up this space, and it's about half of what we already had. So we're in like 4,500 square feet.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you guys are growing.
We haven't added any space since 2014.
Sure.
And we didn't add any equipment this year. So we're not, I wouldn't say that we're growing, but we're stable.
Sure. Well, for manufacturing business in this 2020, I imagine that's okay.
Stable's good.
Yeah. Plus, these can't be cheap.
No. Well, they're not totally crazy expensive, but
I mean, you got space, you got operator, you got the machine itself, care and feeding, all that jazz.
Well, I've heard that machining in general is one of the highest capital equipment investment industries that there is.
So that's a perfect segue, because I want to ask you, how did you end up in this business?
Well, how far you want to go back?
15 years in a day, I suppose.
Okay. So I've been a machinist all my adult life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to school for it, or?
No, but I was very, very, very fortunate.
Okay.
I started on the East Coast.
Okay.
Right after high school, I joined the service, and I was in the Army for 3 years.
Okay.
When I got out, I moved from Wisconsin to Connecticut, where my girlfriend at the time lived. So I got a job out there as an industrial X-ray repair technician.
Industrial X-ray repair technician. Okay.
So
was that trained by the Army then when you were in there?
No, I was actually in multi-channel communications.
Oh, wow.
But they were still big words.
All right. We got wires. It's all good.
So they asked me, what makes you think that you could be an industrial X-ray repair technician?
Sure.
And
Fair
so
question.
I told them, look outside. I drive a 57 Buick Roadmaster, and I keep it on the road, so maybe I could do this job.
That's awesome. How hard can it be?
So exactly.
That's cool.
So they taught me, and I was a repair technician.
All right.
And that's where I first saw metal being cut.
Okay.
And when I saw metal getting cut, the hair on the back of my neck stood up.
Really?
Oh my God. I love it first sight. I said, that's what I've got to do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And that was back in the day when pretty much all companies, were trusting enough to give their employees keys and say, come in and fiddle around with the equipment if you like, just be careful.
Sure.
So I'd come in on my off time and I'd make candlestick holders or who knows what, just to have fun.
Okay.
And then I got married, and I needed to make some more money, and they weren't willing to give me as much of a raise as I wanted, so that's what sent me out to find a machining job.
All right.
So I saw one in the paper one morning, and they said, and I called them, and they said, do you know how to read a vernier caliper? And I said, sure. And they said, do you know how to read a micrometer? I said, yeah, no problem. So they said, well, can you get to an interview by 10 o'clock? Yeah, I'll be there. So I talked to my boss, and he said, yeah, sure, go get to the interview. So this is like 8:30 in the morning. So I run my ass down to the library and look up vernier caliper,
That's
and
awesome.
look up micrometer, and I found out what they were and how they worked.
All right.
And I went to the interview and got the job.
Nice.
And then I trained under this guy, Lou Bomber,
Okay.
82-year-old man at the time,
Wow.
and taught me machining like nobody could have taught me machining.
And he had 60 years under his belt. I imagine.
Exactly.
All right.
So that's where I learned the basics of machining.
Sure.
And from there, I just went on to different places. And again, I was fortunate. I went to a shop where I did a lot of R&D and research and development and building equipment.
All right.
And then I ended up moving out of Connecticut and ended up at Lockheed Missiles and Space.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's an upgrade.
That's a pretty good job. I would have stayed there except for they stopped doing their manufacturing in Austin, Texas.
Oh, all right.
So, but it was very interesting, and I
you
learned a
went
lot.
from Connecticut to Austin.
Connecticut to Austin. Then we were making a remotely piloted aircraft, small aircraft.
So how long ago was this?
This was in late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
And then they lost the contract.
Uh-huh.
So they laid everybody off. And I found myself at another company making parts for Applied Materials. If
Okay.
you know who they are, they make the machines that actually make wafers for like IBM.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So they would make the milling machine that then I would buy. I'd be IBM.
Sure.
And then I'd make my product on their machine.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that's Applied Materials makes the semiconductor machine. And I made parts for those pieces of equipment.
Okay.
So I had I had some very, very good mentors and training, and from Texas, I ended up going to California in machining for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And then brought me back to Wisconsin, and we started the business in 2005.
So why did you decide to start a business versus just finding another job?
Yeah. So what happened in my career, although I had some very, very good training and I always worked my way up to the top, I was the lead in the research and development department at Lockheed,
Yeah.
but then I lost my job anyway.
All right.
So I had no control over
Sure,
if I was going to have a
I
job.
love it. I love it.
So now nobody can sell this place but me.
It's all on you. You
Exactly.
Get that. You hold it.
And if I make correct decisions, I glean the benefit of that. And
Right.
if I make bad decisions, well, I guess I made bad decisions.
That's right.
But they're all on me. And every time you work yourself to the top in machining and you have to go find another job, you usually take quite a pay cut.
All right.
It's just the way it happens because each shop has their own way of doing things.
Sure.
And so you're not as valuable coming off the street, so they would say.
Sure. You got to prove your worth, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you kind of got to start over all the time.
All right. So you're the typical competitor to you. Are they basically a size like this, or they're monstrosity machine shops?
It's a mix. There
Okay.
are some big production machine shops, and then there are some small shops that are probably close to mine.
Okay.
So there's a variety of them out there.
All right.
The one thing that they don't have
Yeah.
is the diversified experience that I bring to the job,
I like it.
because I've been able to machine pretty much in the name of the cross across the United States. And
Yeah.
each time that you move to a new environment, and the type of work that I did, building mock-up of satellites at Lockheed.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty cool work, and I got exposed to that. So a lot of the tricks and a lot of the ins and outs of machining that, let's say a guy stays in one job for 20 years at one place,
Yeah.
you wouldn't see those different styles and
Sure. They'd be so focused on this. and
exactly.
A new part comes their way, and they have to
Right.
relearn.
So
Interesting.
so at the time I started the business, I had 25 years of experience.
All right. That's cool. So you were married at the time that you started the business?
I was.
All right.
My first wife, Debbie,
Yeah.
she passed away in 2017,
Okay. I'm sorry.
but we started it together
Yeah.
in 2005. Actually, to back up just a little bit, I had talked to one of my friends at a party about starting my own business. It was my dream to start my own business.
Yeah.
And he said, you should talk to my older sister. She's here at the party, and she knows a little bit about starting up a business.
All right.
So I went and talked to his sister, Mary. His name was Bill Harris, my best buddy. So I went and talked to Mary, and Mary said, if you're serious, you should go talk to SCORE. So I found out who SCORE was, And I went and I talked to them, and it's free, and they gave me some advice, and they impressed upon me the need to actually develop a business plan, which I had no idea how to do.
That's
because I'm just a graduate of high school.
Sure.
But I went to the software store and I found a cheap program.
Sure.
And I plugged it in my computer and I went to hammering away at it. And it took me about 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I didn't do it full time, and
sure.
And actually I had to back up a couple of times because the program was smarter than me. And I'd get to a certain point in the program, entering the data it asked for, and it would say, alarm, red light, don't start this business, it will not work.
Wow.
So I had to adjust some numbers.
All right.
Until it worked.
Okay.
And then once it worked, we printed it out and we went out to the banks to look for a loan.
So give me a loan, I need to buy a fancy machine.
Exactly.
And they said,
no.
No.
I asked for $100,000 to get it started.
All right.
Which isn't a ton of money when you think about commercial banking.
No.
That should be like, sure, sign here.
Sometimes they won't even look at a loan below $250.
Right.
So
all I need is $100,000 and I can get this baby going. So the first bank I went to, and my advice is, if somebody says no, that just means you need to go see somebody else.
That's right.
So the first bank said, we could give you $30,000. I said, okay, let's see. I can buy a third of a machine.
Sure.
That doesn't work.
No.
So I went to the next bank, and it happened to be somebody that my wife knew, her boyfriend or husband, and we went in and saw him, and he said, what? How long have you been doing this? And I told him, and he said, that's all you need is $100,000? I said, that's all I need. He said, go make a machine shop.
Better answer.
And neither one of them read my business plan that I spent 6 months on.
Not at all.
Not at all.
They didn't look at the financials or anything?
They glanced at the fact that I had one.
Oh, all right.
And I discovered at that point, and I think somebody had already told me this, that document's for you.
Yes.
Because that says that you know what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And at least you have a plan.
Yeah.
And for them to get all involved in it, the nitty-gritty of a $100,000 loan, I didn't think they didn't want to waste their time.
No.
But it was disappointing.
Just look at this.
I did so much work.
At least take it home at night and tell me you read it, right?
And I even printed it out with colors.
Sure.
There's pretty colors and graphs and everything.
It's 29 cents a page. Take a look at that thing. That's funny.
So I got my loan.
All right.
And I first went and looked for the machinery I was going to buy. So I found the Haas machine, which you'll see that I've got all Haas's.
I noticed that today. Yeah.
And they're built in California.
Okay.
It's medium price point. It's not the highest, not the lowest. I had run a Haas machine.
Okay.
In Texas.
So you had experience with them?
So I had experience, and the machine it was really a workhorse. So I kind of believed in the product. So I ordered the machines. So now, but they take a while to order. They don't come in directly.
Right.
So I had like 3 weeks to find a place to put them.
Okay.
Because I thought that you just go to a realtor and they just find you a commercial
space. Yeah, I was going to say 3 weeks is not a lot of time.
So now I got machines on the way, and I start looking for a place to put them, a property. And now I'm running into headaches.
Yeah.
I'm finding like one place that hadn't poured their cement yet, and I had to read their lease, which I don't read legalese that good, but I did find the paragraph that says, even if we don't pour your cement, you still pay rent.
Oh.
I said, really? I don't think that works. Thank you very much. Another place I said, is this zoned for what I want to do? They said, yeah, we think it is. Well,
it's no, yes.
I need a yes. Well, you can check with the city of blah. And I did, and they said, oh no, you'd have to get a variance. And that takes about 3 to 4 months if you get it. So that was a strikeout.
Truck is on the way.
And then I ran into Mac McAllen.
Okay.
And that's the building that I'm in now. One of Mac McAllen's buildings.
You've been in the same spot for 15 years.
15 years we've been in here.
Wow.
And we love it. We love it. So he saw me that same day, and it was on a Saturday, and he's the owner.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. You usually don't see the owner. You'll see
Right.
a real estate agent or whatever. And he showed me the lease. He showed me the place. I said, is it zoned for M3 for what I want to do? He said, it's not in the lease, but I'll write it right there, and I'll sign it. Signed it right there.
Nice.
We signed the lease that day. And he even told me, if you ran into a bind where you didn't have a place, if you didn't rent this place right away, if we don't have it cleaned up for you in time, we'll have a place to store your equipment until you can get going. Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. Mac's no longer with us, unfortunately. He passed away a couple years back.
Okay.
But his daughter runs the business now.
I know his daughter, but I can't place her name. Carrie?
Carrie. Yep. So
Cool.
that's how we got in this place
Very cool.
in 2005.
Huh.
Yep. And my wife quit her job
And as soon as you started the business, or?
to help me start the business.
Wow.
And I, of course, had to quit my job.
Yeah.
I don't suggest that. If you could have an income coming in while you get started, that
Right.
would be beneficial.
Doesn't hurt.
But she quit her job. So you can imagine when we first started out, we were bleeding financially out of both sides.
Sure.
We had the bills here, and we had our bills at home, and no income to cover either one.
All right. So I want to back up one step
Sure.
here. So you decided you want to go off on your own. How did that conversation go with your wife? You're like, hey, funny story. I want to go off on my own.
Well, I think the advice that I got from my sister really helped because it was scary. I talked to her and said, I want to do this, but this is scary stuff. And she said to me, Keith, do you make product for somebody else who sells it right now? I said, you're darn right I do. Every day I go to work, I make something, they sell it. She says, what makes you think that you can't still make it and sell it yourself?
Fair question.
And I said, you know what, I can. And I had the confidence in my background and in the work I was actually doing locally that, you know, that I had the skill set to be able to make whatever came to my door.
Very cool.
So that helps to be, you know, some people might start a business where they're like a management professional, but they don't know how to actually do the work.
Oh,
Those,
okay.
That kind of a person,
Sure.
I kind of feel for them if things get tight, because who's going to jump in the saddle and
Right.
make it happen? Whereas because I'm the one that knows how to do it, not so good on the business side sometimes.
That I see more often. That I see extremely common.
And I'm not, and I admit that. And
Sure.
people will, I'm sure there's people that would say, no, that's not how to do a business. Don't start a business like that. Like for instance, I did not go out and find my customer base first and then start the business and develop it around them.
Sure.
I went out and did the other way, where you
build
make it and they will come.
They'll come,
Yeah, and that's kind of what we did. And so through a lot of flyers, and actually what got us going in the beginning was we had an open house.
Okay.
And that generated enough interest that the people that came in and I was able to talk to one-on-one, tell them my experience, they were willing to give me a chance and
All right.
start giving me some work. And so that was in... I'm sorry about that.
No worries. No worries.
And so that was in... We actually started in August of 2005.
Okay.
We were down to our last dime by December, end of December, and every business worth its salt that starts up should go down to their last dime, I think.
We've all been there.
Yeah, and then and here's something that happened that was beneficial, though, is that because we started in August, taxes for the year, we were able to write it all off as a business loss.
All right.
Because we had started the business in August of 2005. So tax return time, we had a big chunk of money coming back in.
All right. That's a good thing.
And so that, you know, if I was to look at it again, I mean, I would, if I was starting a business and I knew cash flow might be an issue, and you're working for somebody all this year, I'd stretch it out kind of towards the end of the year. Start your business, and then you've got a huge refund, or you could get a big refund based on if you still have losses in the business.
Sure.
During that year.
Fair.
Especially
Totally
when there's big expenditures like $100,000 to get you going.
Right. That's interesting. So who were the people that you brought in for your open house, and how did you get them to even come? Because did they know you?
No.
Well, just a new machine shop.
One shop did know me because I was working at a shop that was doing work for a customer that knew me personally, and of course we gave them a flyer, and then we just looked up all of the industrial users in the area, and we sent them a flyer. Yeah. Made a kind of little fancy card and said open house.
Color and everything, right?
Color. It was even color. And we got a pretty good turnout. And it was what got the business starting to flow. Yeah. And by that beginning of February, this place was starting to pay for itself.
That's not bad.
This place,
That's
but I
still
had nothing to bring home.
Okay. Business is paid for.
But the business was paying for itself.
Sure.
But by the end of February, it was actually paying for itself, and I had some money to take home, and things started to stabilize on that side of the equation.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
So in your $100,000 loan, did you include some cash for your daily living?
I did. I did for cash flow for the business,
not for you.
I didn't really for me because I didn't anticipate my wife deciding that she wanted to quit her job and come on board.
That was new.
That was a surprise.
Oh, funny story.
And yeah, at the time, I mean, she was just so excited. She just wanted to come on board, and
that's cool.
Said, "Hey, honey, we're in this together."
That's admirable, right? She believed in you.
We'll swim or we'll drown together.
That's right. That's cool. Yeah. That's super cool. So, from a marketing standpoint, let's just talk, this open house thing is intriguing. Did you mail them? Did you go door to door to these places? Did you call them up?
We mailed them.
Okay.
We mailed them, and then we did some follow-up phone calls to make sure that they got them. Okay. And then we kind of got an idea of who they might be sending. All right. And again, it wasn't, that was just the catalyst. Yeah. Then what happened is that word of mouth took over. Ah, that's a good thing. And these engineers, because we primarily do work for engineers who design the work that we build, and they have a pretty good networking system. I'm sure. I'm not in it, so I don't know exactly, but sure. We constantly have people that would call us and we'd say, "Where'd you get our name?" And it would be another engineer that's having work done here. Wow. Right. Sure. That's cool. Yeah. That's super cool. So it just spread kind of like word of mouth through this area that here was another machine shop. Not just another machine shop, a world-class machine shop. Right, I like it. Not the cheapest machine shop, sure, but the best machine shop. For a machine shop, that's probably a better thing, right? Well, I would think so, especially if you're going to put my component on your $1 million remotely piloted sub that's going to work under the oil rigs in the Gulf. Right. You don't want that to fail and lose your $1 million piece of equipment by saving $200 on the component. You know, it's interesting. I am reading a book about lean manufacturing, and they're talking about Ford and the whole. Oh my gosh, my mind is blank. Whatever came before lean manufacturing, with the assembly line and all that kind of stuff. Assembly line, sure. And how the machining tolerances back then. Tolerance is probably a very loose term for that. Sure. Because once they got the parts in, then they had to have somebody else work their magic to make those parts fit with the other parts. Right. And how that was just accepted. Sure. And Ford was like, no. We're going to clean that up right now. Mass production. Oh my gosh. Right. That's such an easy term. But so it's interesting how stuff like that has evolved. And I imagine there's some things that you're building that are just crazy tight tolerances. Well, it depends on what you call crazy, but all my machines will hold positioning of 2/10,000ths of an inch. All right. In my world, that's crazy. Because a human hair is about 4/1000ths of an inch. Wow, okay. So 1/10 of a hair, if you could split a hair into 10 pieces, that would be 4/10,000ths of an inch. And my machines can hold half of that. Wow.
How do they even measure that? Is that the micrometer, vernier caliper? That seems like too precise for that.
So we have micrometers
Okay.
that will measure that will measure
Okay.
that fine.
Because I see when you're adjusting those, it's based on tension. So
They're-
like the plus or minus, I would
Yeah.
just crush it, right?
Right. Well, that's why we would have to train you for a while. And I'm sure you'd get the hang of it.
Yeah, just stick a
but
tenth
it
of the
doesn't-
hair in there.
It doesn't happen overnight.
Okay.
And speaking of training, you met some of the people that work in the shop.
Yeah, you have some good people.
Everybody, we got the most excellent people, and all of them have been trained here.
That's got to be rare, though. I mean, let's just shift into employees, right? Because employees
is.
for me have been a headache. Up
Yeah.
until the past year,
Yeah.
it's been, like with calls on call,
Right.
9.5 years, I've been
Right.
fighting employees for 8 of those years.
Right.
With Doc Jams, I fought employees pretty much the whole time.
So here's my perspective on that.
Okay.
And you'll hear there's a little angst in my voice when I talk about it,
Okay.
because whenever I hear companies say, not you, but
Right.
machining companies or manufacturing companies say, you know what the problem is? We don't have any trained workers.
Oh,
My question is, are you training any?
right.
And what happened was, I believe, at least this is what I saw throughout my career. In the late 80s, early 90s, shops were still in training mode. In other words, they were bringing apprentice along.
Okay.
And they continually doing training,
Okay.
continually. And then that all stopped in like the mid 90s, end of the 90s. Somebody in corporate decided, hey, you know what? That costs money. Well, yeah, it costs money,
Right.
but now,
Better.
but you've got trained workers.
Yeah, it also makes money.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Short term, it costs more money, but also short term, you have people that are learning. So now they're hired from the head down, not from the neck down.
Right.
And when you're learning, it's a more enjoyable experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Than just sitting and putting a widget in a machine.
Right. Because you're making progress, and progress is
Exactly.
happiness, right? Yeah.
So all of my people, all the wonderful people that work for this business,
Yeah.
have been trained from the basics, from cutting stock on the saw all the way to programming.
Wow.
Right. Where in my day, to be a programmer, you had to have a college degree.
Oh.
I didn't have a college degree. I
Sure.
was kept out of it for quite a while until I went and got a software package of my own
Yeah.
and taught myself how to program.
Figure it out.
And then I did get lucky and I landed a job where I got to do some programming,
Okay.
and that's how I know how to program. And
Yeah.
I thought if I ever have my own shop, everybody gets to program.
Nice.
So it's a well-rounded, then they become well-rounded in their trade. And it's not a machining job, it's a craft.
Oh, I like that.
It's craftsmanship. These people put out work that the first thing the customer says, 99% of the time, is, wow.
That's what you like.
Wow,
Yeah.
look at that. And then the next thing they find is that, guess what? Everything fits together.
Probably even better.
Because
right?
it's correct.
Yeah.
And so the quality is there, the craftsmanship is there, they grow into this career complete. Enough that they'll probably compete against me someday. Or, we have had some employees that we've trained and then they get good enough to where they can go out and find another job. And you could try to match the wages and the benefits, but what you can't match is another environment
Right.
that they're looking
culture, yeah.
they're looking for. And they've gone off and looked at that, and I've even had some come back.
Oh.
So my
Cool.
recommendation to anybody that finds himself in that situation that, I don't want to train anybody and build them up because they might leave me. Let them leave.
Right.
Don't burn the bridges. Guess what? If you're doing what you should be doing, you probably have them come back to you.
Yeah. Make
Lucky.
a valuable
Exactly.
workplace environment, right?
And the three things that we built there's three things that make, you've already heard this one, three things that make a business successful. People, people, and people.
People, people, people. All day long.
And if you build the people, you'll build the business. And that happens on the customer service side too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a business about people.
Yeah, most are, regardless of what the
Even
certain
if it's
business
widgets.
owners may not be aware of that. But
Sure.
I look at the construction industry now. Still, generally speaking, terrible customer service. And we're trying to figure out how to fix that. I mean, just us, say me as a consumer, me and us, some business partners and I, in certain areas of construction.
Sure.
This is a tough nut.
Yeah.
Tough nut. I want to ask you about your first employee. So your wife comes on with you.
Right.
She didn't do machining, right?
No.
Okay. So who was the first machinist that you brought on besides yourself?
So my wife was out at lunch one day,
Okay.
and it was like like bar food, and there was
Sure.
a bartender there
All
that
right.
was complaining about his job, and I was busy. I needed a hand,
Okay.
and
So you were at this bar.
no, I wasn't there. Just my wife was there.
Oh, your wife is there. Okay.
Having lunch. She talks to this bartender, and the guy comes down and meets with me, and he goes, "Yeah, I'd like to work here."
All right.
No skill, no, as far as machining.
No background.
No background in
that,
it at
okay.
all. And so I only had two machines at the time. I had this VF3,
All right.
and I had the TL1, which is the machine, the lathe at the end.
Okay.
And I had work for both of them. And of course, I could only be in one place
Right.
at one time. So I plugged him in over on the lathe and taught him how to run the lathe.
Nice.
And he started running the lathe for me.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Just off the street, essentially, with bartender skills
Yeah.
and whatever other background he has.
And an attitude to learn. That's
Probably
key.
something you can't teach that.
I will take the right attitude
Right.
versus all the skills you learned at a
all day long.
at some college, like
Yeah.
one of these technical colleges,
Right.
And now you're God's gift to machining,
Right.
And actually, when you get in here, you find out you really don't know very much,
Right.
But a person with the right attitude in this environment, you wouldn't believe how fast they learn.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. You hire for personality, you can train the rest. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If we could have gotten them when they're 4 years old, you can train for personality.
Yeah,
But
right.
Somebody else had that job.
Yep.
Interesting. So how, like within a few days, he's off and running, or an hour?
Well, no, I mean, you probably have, for basic operation,
Sure.
the job's already set up. Basic operation you can teach in about 4 hours.
Sure.
And by that time they can start to make parts.
Okay.
And we're not talking about critical, difficult parts.
No, I understand. There's
But-
probably
But then there's a learning
curve, right? Yeah.
And then they start learning from there.
push this button, make sure nothing binds, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you can send them to work there, and then
Yeah.
let me know if red lights start flashing.
Better not be any red lights.
Okay.
You
Something
do
like
everything
that.
right. There's no red lights.
So did that guy stay with you for a while?
So I had my first employee, then I hired two more,
Wow.
and that was all in the first year, after the first year.
Okay.
Because by the summer of the first year, we added another machine.
Nice.
So work was picking up,
Yeah.
and I hired a new person. And by, I guess, summer of the next year, so it was 2 years in, I had 3 employees.
Wow.
Yeah, except for, so one day, 2 of them come talk to me at the same time.
Uh-oh.
They're both leaving.
Not a good thing.
No. And I felt like physically,
Yeah.
like somebody punched me in the gut.
Right. Just when you think you had it figured out.
Oh man, I thought I had it figured out. Mm-hmm. And it was physical. And that night, I talked to myself and I said, I'm never going to let that happen again. So how am I going to make sure that never happens again?
I was just going to ask you. You figured that out?
Yes.
All right.
Here's the silver lining. What we can do best in this environment is train people. So I'm going to key in on that. You're leaving? You've been trained? Good luck. I'm a proud papa. I get to hire again.
Oh,
I get to train again.
sure.
And we bring somebody on and we train again. So that it doesn't do that to you.
Right.
And I've lost people over the years.
Right.
But I got some great people that have been here a long time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one young fella came to me, and he's showed what he's worth. And after he was here about 2 years, I said, "You're going to be my general manager." And he said, "What's a general manager do?" I go, "You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out."
Sure.
And 10 years later, he's not only been the general manager for 10 years, but he also became a principal, a partner of mine.
Wow.
In this last year.
Very cool.
So at a very young age, he's a partner in this business.
Nice.
A substantial partner in this business.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's gonna make you feel good, I bet.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's that way I can maybe retire.
Right, someday.
Yeah.
Someday. So 2005, you start the business. A few years later, the economy had a little bad day.
2008, 2009.
Yeah. How did that affect your business?
Oh, wow. 2008, the end of 2008, December, it was like a light switch got turned off. Wham! No more RFQs, requests for quotes. No more. Nothing. No phones rang. So we started cleaning up the shop and doing some things that were left over.
Sure.
And
Thinking
then,
this is just a temporary thing.
well, I probably should have reacted to it sooner, but it was my first downturn.
It's hindsight.
Yeah. So then we found out that there was, in the stimulus package that they offered in 2009, there was very little for manufacturing.
Okay.
But I had been a member of the chamber, Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce, for some time, and kind of knew the folks down there. And I called down there and I said, "Is there something in there for me?" And they were smart enough to point me in the right direction. And there was a $35,000 loan available that would pay for the payments on your capital equipment.
All right.
And it had to be paid back, but it was zero interest, zero fees. It was free money.
Okay.
And then there was a time period where you didn't have to pay it back, and then you could pay it back over a long period of time, which we paid it all back.
Yeah.
But at the time, that $35,000, paying those loan payments on the machines, gave me the cash flow to keep some people on board that I wouldn't have been able to keep on board.
All right.
So we had some rolling layoffs during 2009.
Okay.
And so 2009 was very educational to me because I learned how to run a nonprofit. But we made it.
Yeah.
We made it where there were some shops that went out of business.
I bet.
And it was really tough coming out of the back side of it. Even when the work started picking back up, the customers were taking advantage of it because there was so much competition. They could get their products for less money and in a shorter window.
Sure.
So now we had to make everything twice as fast for half the price.
All right.
Which we did.
Right.
And we worked our way out of it. And by 2010, midway through 2010, I think things started picking back up.
Okay.
And then, hello, 2020.
Yeah, right. Just when you thought 2008 was bad.
Yeah.
Poof.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how are you guys faring with, I guess, how is manufacturing as a whole? Let's start with that faring. Let's even look at 2018, 2019. Was manufacturing doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, everything's been pretty stable. And we're a very small company, so, we don't feel the impacts, on a large scale. But, but we do feel when oil prices drop, energy companies quit investing money
in renewables and all that,
or in R&D.
Okay.
And so then any overflow work comes back into their own shops, or
gotcha.
it retracts. So there's like a domino effect that can affect the work that we're doing.
All right.
Now, 2008, 2009 was pretty weird because actually everything shrunk at the same time.
Right.
That didn't happen this time in 2020.
Oh, it's been weird, yeah.
It actually going in to 2020, we still had orders pretty solid, and then when COVID hit, we thought we'd see a downturn immediately, but it didn't happen immediately, and we were deemed essential because we've got customers that do have contracts with the government. So that work that was still in the pipeline, it stayed pretty strong.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it stayed strong.
Yeah.
But then it started to weaken, and it kind of dropped off about a month ago.
Okay.
And we actually did have some layoffs a month ago.
Okay.
It was only about, from what we saw, as long as everything keeps trending the way it is, that it was about 6 weeks of slowdown, and now things are starting to pick back up again.
Okay.
So we're hoping that it keeps trending that way. Although now we've got a presidential election to deal with, which puts more in uncertainty in the markets, and companies have a tendency to pull in and a little bit.
They just hold their cards a little bit before,
Thing about it is that they can only hold on so long.
Right.
And when they finally let loose, I think 2021 should be a pretty good year.
All right.
That we're hoping
got to be
for.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't. I guess they can't stay in a holding pattern forever.
No.
Sooner or later, you got to take off or land, right?
Exactly.
That's just how it rolls.
Yeah.
So, what have been some of the biggest challenges outside of the whole COVID thing in 2008? What have been some of the other challenges that you didn't necessarily anticipate?
Well, one, and I hate to hit on a certain industry, but I'll, so I won't say their name, but their initials are bank.
Okay.
Banks.
All right.
Tough eggs.
Yeah.
For no reason at all, you can find a bank that all of a sudden, even though you've been paying everything and you've been doing everything the way that you're supposed to, they can start to make things difficult.
Yeah.
And then you just have to go down the road and find another bank. So, again, I would tell anybody, exactly. And look, they're making money off you.
Yes.
So you are the customer, and don't ever let them make it feel like it's the other way around.
Right.
Because they are very intimidating, because they hold the cash.
Yes.
But they hold the cash so that they make money off you.
They hold some of the cash, right? The guy, the bank down the road holds some too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I've discovered through the years, and even in the startup. I learned my lesson right off the bat, but then through the years, I thought I would be able to establish a relationship with a bank that would last like it does with my customers for 15 years.
Sure.
And that didn't happen. I can't put my finger on exactly why, except for there is something to the fact that young, aggressive bankers come in and they'll pretty much give you what you want. They're doing such a good job, they get promoted and they get shipped out to Phoenix or something.
All right.
And then the rest of the bank gets a hold of it and you get treated like a number.
Sure.
Instead of that personal relationship.
You're just another loan kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one thing that's been surprising to me. But, I mean, we're doing great with who we're with right now.
That's cool.
So everything's good. But, again, I think you should always kind of keep an eye over your back to the fact that even if you have a good relationship, it wouldn't hurt to keep another relationship on the side.
Yes.
Just as a backup.
It's interesting how business works in comparison to romantic relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like in business, you always have to have a side thing. Romantic ones, that'll just get you in trouble.
Yeah.
In business, that'll probably save you.
Well, I don't know anything about that. You're probably the expert on that. So.
Business side, sure. I don't even know where to begin in the romantic one. Yeah. It's interesting that that's just the way it is, right?
The other things, that are a little bit of a drawback is working with customers on research and development projects is really rewarding.
I bet.
But at the same time, eventually they do go towards the production market, and then you lose that business.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So we had to prepare ourselves for that. The other thing is sometimes we feel bad that we can't be everything for everybody, but
it's not possible.
No, and if you're looking to buy a Porsche or a Mercedes, you wouldn't go to a Ford dealership,
right,
and expect to spend the money that you would spend for a Ford and get a Porsche,
right.
So, but people will try to buy the Porsche for the money, for
everybody wants
money.
a deal, yeah.
Right, and sometimes when we hear, because we'll quote a job and it's Porsche prices, but you're going to get a Porsche in the end. Yet other companies might give them a price that's a lower down the Ford price.
Sure.
And we have to, and they'll come back and tell us, hey, we could get it for this. And we have to say, well, sorry, we can't do it for that.
Right.
Because the amount of effort and work that we'll put into it, we got to get paid for that. And so we just have to realize we can't be everything to everybody.
Right.
And that's kind of hard sometimes.
Right.
But
you want people to say yes.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, that's zero money for you.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you can't sacrifice your quality to appease somebody, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I would rather not take the job on than to try to cut all the corners necessary in order to make it at the price that they want to pay. So I pretty much have to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe how many times that they'll go for that other option, and then we'll get a call 6 weeks from then, and they're in a real rush for it now, and they're willing to spend the extra money because they gave it to another shop who did not perform on it. And now, not only are they 6 weeks behind, but they've got a hassle they've got to go through with returning that or whatever they have to do. And then they got to get into our queue, and we try to help them out and speed things up if we can.
Right. The Ford broke down.
Fix or repair daily.
That's right. That's so funny. That's awesome. How are you marketing your business now, or how have you marketed your past business for the past 5 years?
Bankers don't want to hear this because we don't market.
Oh.
We don't market. Well, it markets itself.
So word of mouth?
Word of mouth.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, word of mouth. And that's kept us in business, plenty of business for 15 years.
Nice. The occasional podcast interview, right?
Right. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned that. This is our first advertising that we're gonna do. Dickinson Manufacturing Solutions.
Yeah. That's cool. That is impressive that you've been able to run for 15 years with just word of mouth. From pretty much the start, it sounds like.
From the start. Except for a few flyers.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So what's going to happen in the future? Do you predict to knock down some more walls, add some more stuff, or is this a good size? It seems like every industry there's an ideal size for a given type of company. So are you above, below, right on? Are you the Goldilocks? Where are you at there?
I believe that right now we're the right size for the niche market that we're in.
Okay. All right.
Now, that being said, I am going into like a semi-retirement.
All right.
And yes, I'm.
Are you really?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
So
5 years, I'm going to be on a beach.
Exactly, and so a lot of the decision making, I've already passed on to my partner.
Oh wow.
And it just depends on what kind of a mix he wants, because he'll be bringing the company into the future.
Okay.
And I refuse to micromanage it.
All right. He
has to make the decisions on it. And right now, I would believe that we are about 80%, 80% R&D, one-off, short-run production.
Okay.
20% production.
Okay.
If he were to change that mix for whatever reason, he decides, if we went more towards the production side, I believe he may need more space and more capacity.
All right.
And again, he may want to do something with advertising that I didn't want to do, and go a little bit more nationwide.
Sure.
And pick up the business some, and so it's kind of depends on what he wants to do.
All right.
So I'm going to leave that question for your next podcast when you come back and you interview Rick Edwards.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How soon is this happening then?
Well, I've actually started this year, except for COVID messed it all up. What I was
It's going
doing
to be on the beach today, but
what I was doing is I was working, essentially working 1 day a week, and I'd be available to come in if they needed me for the rest of the week. But then we had some people out because of COVID, and so I ended up coming in a little bit more. I don't get on the machines and make anything anymore.
Okay.
So I'm here kind of just as a resource, and to help out Rick in managing the place. But and a little bit of quoting. But other than that,
sure,
they all do they do the important stuff.
15 years, you earned it, right? You built up a big business.
15 years. I've been machining. What?
Starting the business, years. Right? That's a long time. That's a long time for anything. So I wonder, have the machines here, have they evolved or changed in the past 15 years, or is it pretty much a drill? Like I see a 3.5-inch floppy on this guy, and my wife's got an embroidery machine that came with a 3.5 floppy.
Right.
And I remember saying to her, "It's a 3.5 floppy. What are you gonna do with that?"
Right.
And the repair guy was like, "Let me tell you a story about these files and blah 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 blah," and he justified the 3.5 floppy. I'm like, all right. So is that essentially the same story with this stuff?
It is.
Okay.
You're right. So as they evolve, because this is a 2005 model.
Okay.
It's got the floppy, but if you look over here, this is a 2014 model, and it's got the USB.
Oh, okay. So that is just a jump drive.
Yeah. And,
all right.
And you can actually have them Bluetooth and
sure.
do all kinds of crazy stuff now.
Okay.
Whatever the technology is.
Sure.
But it's not going to be on a 2005 machine.
Okay.
But we even ran into some problems with getting the 3.5-inch floppies. We had to go to a company in California that still carries
just
them.
To get them.
Just to get them. You can't buy them anywhere.
No.
And then everything. But our computer system and our programming system is state of the art. In fact, we just ended up putting in a new server over the weekend. My GM is all the IT stuff, and
sure.
So what happens is that is only for just to transfer from back and forth.
Gotcha.
And then the rest of it is backed up on computers.
Okay. What it's so interesting because what blows my mind, I was even saying this to myself today. I'm trying to load a website, and now when you compare now to 2005 internet speeds, now it's like 1,000 times faster. I'm like, why do I have to wait for a website to load? I shouldn't have to wait, right? Because where 56K back in the day was lightning, and now we're at 100 meg up and down on the low side. Like, why are we waiting? It seems like the software always seems to be outpacing the speed of the hardware by a factor. So when I see a 3.5-inch floppy, if it's 1.5 meg, is that enough for the file? But maybe it is.
So
it must be.
That's a good question. It's not.
It's not. Okay.
Well, for some programs that we do a lot more 3D machining.
Oh, gotcha.
Which is pretty big. So this machine wouldn't be tasked with it.
Gotcha.
But just an example.
Yeah.
A lot of this, not a lot, but some of the stuff that we make is just a square block with some holes in it. So that doesn't take much data at all to produce.
It's kind of sexy. I don't know, man. This chunk of steel, you can see what you guys did. That's impressive. With the threads on there, holy cow.
Yeah, I think I could make you into a machinist if you feel like that looks sexy.
I used to be a mechanic.
Okay,
so
there you go.
Seeing stuff like this. I was even, it's funny, this weekend, I'm with my buddy. He's got a kid that's about the same age as my kid. So they're off playing, and they're like, hey, will you guys play Legos with us? So they play Legos with us for about 5 minutes, and they run off. My buddy and I kept playing Legos for 2 more hours. And he had some kind with gears.
Wow.
And I'm staring at these gears like I haven't played Legos in forever. It was cool.
Yeah.
Just trying to get all those gears to work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you work on your business, so to speak, you're behind a desk, you're banging on the keyboard, all that kind of stuff. You don't get to do the mechanical stuff. And I find that I have to have my car hobby in order to keep the mechanical brain.
Well, that's the craftsman in you too. I think that a true craftsman needs to be able to make something out of something else, or improve something that they have with tools, and it has to be tangible.
Yes.
Not something in the
No
virtual world.
Right.
An engineer might be happy working in his virtual world all day, but I'd rather cut metal.
Totally. Yeah, all day long. You can see it.
Yeah.
You can feel it. You can see what's
You
good
can
or bad.
measure it, and it becomes something.
I think that's why I never got into software. Just trying to find a bug in software, I would just have the hardest time.
Oh, sure.
Finding a problem with the part, you'd be like, this doesn't line up. You can clearly see what's going on. But maybe the software person feels the same way. Just opposite, I suppose.
Sure.
So, at any rate, how do you feel about walking away, or I guess retiring from this? Is it a good feeling, or is it tough?
Oh man, it's tough. It's like ignoring your baby. I mean,
They'll be fine.
But it's in good hands,
Right.
and I'm really proud of all the work that they've been doing.
Yeah.
And so it's been. I've had to have a few conversations with myself.
Okay.
About how do I feel about it, and how, and I tell you what, it's getting easier as the more conversations I have with myself.
Right.
I'm not going to talk myself out of it, because I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go fishing, and I'm going to do the things that I want to do. But I don't think I'll ever lose the connection, which is a beautiful thing too, that the shop goes on, and I'm always welcome back in.
Sure.
And I think I might even get a phone call once in a while. The old man still has a few tricks up his sleeve.
Help! That's awesome. So if you were to give advice for someone that was considering starting a business, let's just start broad and then we can work into a machine. Broad business advice, what would you give someone? Something that you wish you would have known 15 years ago.
And this is probably not new advice, but if you have an idea and you believe in it strongly, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, go for it, and don't let anybody stop you.
I love it. That's cool.
Yeah, and don't let the banks say no.
No.
Listen to what they have to say. You may have to tailor it and shave a little off here or there, but don't go. At least shop it around. Let's see what else. I really truly believe that it helped me that I knew the business before I started the business.
Yeah.
And I think that's very helpful.
Totally agree.
Because it adds that passion level. You have to really be passionate about it to be able to stick through some of the hard stuff that you're going to go through in the beginning. And then don't get discouraged.
Right.
Even when it looks a little bit dismal.
Looks a little bleak.
Yep. Talk to other people that have been in business. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
I would suggest becoming a member of the Chamber of Commerce.
All right.
I think that relationship has helped me, especially in the hard times.
Yeah.
Because, when everything's going along good, you don't need help from anybody.
Right.
But as soon as it gets a little bit rocky, boy, I'd take advice from just about anybody.
Sure, right?
Right?
Need some help.
So,
Need some help.
yeah. What are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, you don't want them to say, who are you?
Exactly.
I've been a member, I've been involved, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Instead of just I've been in my little hole trying to get a nut. I'm having a hard time getting that nut.
And then the other thing is that of course it all depends on your philosophy, on how you want to run your business. Mine is one philosophy, which was people, and train. Not train, but you have to train to get as a catalyst to get them thinking on their own. And I take no credit for where these people are today with their career.
Okay.
Because they're fantastic. They blow me away. But I taught the basics, or we taught the basics as a business. Once they have those basics, they got the toolkit. Yeah. Then they start putting the tools together and put notches on their belt.
Sure.
Right? And then what's really crazy neat is to watch them figure out a new problem with the tools in their toolkit without you helping them by the hand to do it.
Yeah.
And now you have a person that's really well on their way to being fulfilled and starting to perfect their career.
Yeah.
And be able to hold their head high and go, I am a world-class machinist.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's impressive. There's something to be said about having passion for the job, right?
I think so.
Instead of just punching a clock.
I think so. I think at least before I started my own business, the shops that I worked for that treated me as just somebody to plug parts in, that's what they got back.
Right.
You get what you pay for, and
sure.
you get what you nourish. And the shops that held me in a higher esteem to be able to think on my own, and where you work for somebody that you would never even call a boss because they're a mentor and a coach, that's key.
Gotcha.
Then you know what? Then you get everything out of me. That's what works for me.
All right.
That's what tickles my fancy.
Sure.
Somebody actually wanting my opinion and listening and letting me think and letting me share. And that's kind of more of a complete job.
Sure. Using the hands, the heart, and the brain.
Everything.
Instead of just the hands, right?
Exactly.
I like
it. That gets old after a while.
It totally does. Yeah.
But you can even turn that into something where you're using your mind if you turn it into a dance, I call it.
Okay.
So what we call a door slammer, a job like we have over here where the cycle time on this part is like 20 seconds or 30 seconds.
Oh, wow. So it's boom, boom, boom.
So it's boom, boom, boom. But if you think about it and you use the most efficient body movement, you can even turn it into like a dance.
Sure.
And so it can become satisfying that it's choreographed. And then once you have that baseline, you can change the dance.
All right.
But if it's done differently every time, you can't improve on something that is done differently every time.
Then it's chaotic.
There's no baseline.
Right.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
That's clever. Like adding the extra moves to the 4-step, right?
Exactly.
As long as you get the 4-step down, you can tweak and have some fun with it.
You betcha.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. What type of business advice would you give to someone that was considering starting a machine shop?
Don't do it in Madison because the competition is real stiff.
That's awesome.
Machine shop. So I would just say that I would start small like I did.
Okay.
With about $100,000 will get you into enough machinery.
Will it still?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think it will. And I wouldn't skimp on the place though. I would leave yourself room for expansion.
Sure.
Because if you're not going to grow it, don't start it.
Right.
And you don't want to be moving in your first 10 years.
I can't imagine what moving one of these machines would cost.
It's expensive.
I bet.
Yeah. It would be expensive to move this shop.
Yeah.
It would have to be well worth it to do that. So I would start small, with a couple of machines maybe. But I would do quality, state-of-the-art machines. I would not start with something old, because the thing is when you first start out, the customers that you gain, you cannot afford to disappoint them.
Right.
So you can't go, oh, my machine went down.
No.
Not in your first couple years.
No.
No. It has to be, I can do that for you. You'll have it at this date with this level of quality, and this is how much it costs.
Right.
And you got to follow through with that, or you'll lose them before you got them.
Yeah, it's tough to grow, especially by word of mouth that way.
In the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th year, maybe they'll understand an excuse.
Right.
Something happened.
Maybe.
But in that but in that first 2 years, I think you have to be able to perform on time and every time, and that's about it.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Well, Keith, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
This time went fast, but this is impressive. I just like sitting here. And you can just smell must be cutting oil or something like that?
A little cutting oil.
Okay. And then metal and stuff like that. Yeah. I miss stuff like this.
Yeah.
The office doesn't have this at all. So, that's just how it is. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good times. This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Coming to you from Dickinson Manufacturing. which is just a cool place, right? How would you like people to get a hold of you? What would be the best way?
They can look us up on the internet, or they can just call us at area code 608-222-3489.
222-3489. Awesome. And do you do stuff nationally, or is it mostly local?
A lot of it's local to engineering firms or companies that are local, but
Okay.
we have customers in California and in Texas.
So across the country.
Sure.
All right. Canada?
I don't know if anything's going to Canada, although our products that are going to our engineers are actually sold all over the world.
Oh, really? Nice. All right. Well, there you go. What's the website?
The website is DickinsonManufacturingSolutions.com.
Gotcha. And Dickinson, this is funny because I kept spelling your name wrong.
Oh, right. Dickinson, Dickinson.
Okay, shoot, I got it good here. I was like, I don't even know if I have it right here.
Yep.
That's funny. So this is Keith Dickinson. Keith, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Super cool. Find us airing on 103.5 Wednesdays at 1 p.m., Sundays at 2 p.m., as well as at sunprairemediacenter.com. Past episodes, of course, can be found morning, noon, and night. The podcast link found at drawInCustomers.com. If you're listening to this on the web, please like, subscribe, and share. And that's all we got, right? Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.
Great.
Yeah, our job here is done.